Good evening, welcome to Leicester Fan TV. My name's Phil and this is our regular Monday night Fanzone show live just tonight on Facebook alone. So it's all you guys out there in Facebook land. It is the day before New Year's Eve, the day before New Year's Day. We have got Newcastle United on New Year's Day to look forward to. A trip up to the Toon. Are you going? Let us know. What do you think the score's going to be? What do you think that team is going to be? We were all shocked and surprised on Saturday when we saw the team that Brendan Rodgers put out. I want to know what you think about the team that he put out. Good evening to David Hart. Evening to you. Richie Collins is watching. Brett is watching. Good evening, guys. Get your views in. Dave Felstead. Ross Howard. How are you, Ross? Hopefully going to get Ross doing a bit of content for us, if that's all right with you, Ross giving us his thoughts. One of the debates we've started on the Facebook group. I don't know if you're a member of the Facebook group. Quite a few of you are joining it now. It's obviously free to join. Everything we do is free. And one of the debates today, good evening, Chris Allen, how are you? One of the debates today has been, what has been the most important the most important events in Leicester City's last decade. So 2010 to what will be 2020 in just under or just over 24 hours. What do you think? I'd like to see that in the comments as well. What do you think's been some of the most important moments of the last 10 years? Good evening, Paul Spilling, Phil Creed, Alison Green, Paul Purser, Dale Booth. Get your comments in. Michael James says, I believe... Oh, Michael wants to talk about transfer debates. Obviously, that is going to open in just a very short time. Michael James says, I believe Leicester will get the transfer work done early, which is an interesting topic. Ross saying, only on for a few minutes as I'm on a break, hungover watching game on stream on New Year's Day. Yes, I think a lot of Leicester fans will be... feeling a bit rough on New Year's Day, but also a lot of Leicester fans going all the way up to sit that high up in that stand in Newcastle. James Moore saying, I think Johnny Evans will be rested against Newcastle. Do you, James? I think Johnny Evans is looking as good as ever. Joanna Astley is watching. Hi, Joanna. What do you think? And just a reminder for all you season ticket holders, have you got your Carabao Cup ticket sorted? I forgot. The deadline was yesterday. And I forgot, and I was in a panic this morning. And after about 45 minutes on hold to the Leicester City ticket office, as ever, with nobody answering, I did them online. So I got them, but I was in a bit of a sweat. So have you got your Carabao Cup tickets? Graham Ball says, good evening, VAR. Liverpool are sponsored by VAR. It seems to be going their way, doesn't it? It's like everybody wants Liverpool to do it in the FA. Jake Palmer, good evening. How are you? I am good. Andy Meadows is watching. Come on, Andy. Get your views in. Let us know. Anthony Beebe says, we can't live without Evans at the moment. How good is Johnny Evans? How good has he been playing as well? John Squires is watching, and Dave Loseby says, what an excellent performance by the reserve team. He's talking about Saturday at West Ham. He shows how strong our squad is. Talking of what's been the best thing in the last 10 years, Leslie Slattery says The Great Escape. I think that's a good shout. That was one of the most important things in the last 10 years, The Great Escape. 2015, obviously 14-15 season. Andy Meadows says he's got his ticket for Villa. Me too, Andy, but I did forget. Honestly, Christmas gets in the way of all this football. Alison Green says, I loved The Great Escape Season 2. It was a very exciting season, wasn't it, The Great Escape? Listen, here's a couple of points for you to think about the last 10 years of Leicester City history. Hello to Auntie Karen who's watching. Hello, Karen Kennel. Hope you're well. And Andy Mullins is watching in the afternoon in New York City. Good evening to you, or good afternoon to you. Where are you watching from, Andy Mullins? Fond memories of watching Leicester City play live from the Football Factory. Legends Bar, I believe, one way round, down there in New York City. Paula Garner says, the best thing in the last 10 years is signing Jamie Vardy. I agree with you, Paula. I think that is up there in the top things that Leicester City have done. I believe Jamie Vardy was signed on May the 18th, 2012. I looked that up earlier because I do think that is a key moment. Jamie Vardy is a massive part of the Leicester City revolution. So 2012 we signed Jamie Vardy. Is that one of the most important things in the last 10 years? I think it's in there. I think it's in that top 10. As is The Great Escape, but you keep putting things in there. What do you think is the biggest things in the last decade for Leicester City? Richie Collins, good evening, Richie. Hope you're well. Yes, we will, Richie. Get up, and we must do this podcast at some point. Richie says he's got his ticket for Villa. Jake Palmer says the best moment of the decade for Leicester City was, I say, Vardy breaking the record and then qualifying for the Champions League. 2000 and... when did he break the record? That would have been 2015, I think he broke it, because he broke it in the first half of the season. Is Newcastle on the box, says Casey Danielle. No, it's not. But other methods are available, Casey. Dave Felstead says the two most important things that have happened in the last 10 years is Vichai buying the club and then going on to win the league. Dave, got to be up there in that top... If we were, should we create a top 10? I am making this up, as ever, you know me. Oh, why don't we make up a top 10 moments of the last 10 years? That sounds like the sort of thing we could do. Dave says, Vichai buying the club. 2010, he was a major investor in the club, effectively bought the club. And then I think 2011, Vichai becomes the official club chairman and sole owner. Start of the decade, that's where it all started. That's got to be in the top 10, surely. I agree with Dave on that. Craig talking about the Newcastle game. Craig Carver says, don't risk Ricardo for Newcastle. Play James Justin. How good did James Justin look? I thought James Justin played ever so well at West Ham. I thought he was a real... I mean, we've seen flashes of him, but really, really well against West Ham. Scott Simpson, hello to you. Hope you're well. Anthony Beebe says the owners have been the best thing. And Tom Hogar's watching. Tom, how are you? Andrew Turlington saying, good evening from Thailand. I love all these far-flung foxes. We'll shout out as many as we can. Andrew is watching from Thailand. We've had a shout out from New York City earlier. Where is everybody watching from tonight? Andy Meadows saying, Vichai buying the club, otherwise I don't think we would have won the Premier League. You've got to say that is one of the most important things. The Thai owners, Vichai and Top, coming into the club. Mick Henson saying, Jamie Vardy having a party. Ross Howard says, the best thing in the last 10 years is the 21st of December 2013, the day Vichai cleared out our debts and been debt-free since. Good shout. Aggie says the best thing in the last 10 years was sacking Puel. Lee Hurst has got his ticket for Villa and the FA Cup on Saturday. Don't forget that game is at tea time, 5:31 p.m. kickoff. Andy Meadows says Pearson setting the foundation for a Premier League winning team. Yeah, massive shout out, Nigel Pearson. Came to Leicester, did two stints, didn't he, Pearson? My memory of. That would be another thing we could go through. Maybe not tonight. How many managers have we had in the last 10 years? Too many for me to try and count. I would think we would go back to, when was Sven Goran Eriksson? Was he in the last 10 years? Was he post-Ollie? Mr. Holloway? I'm sure he was. Mick Hansen saying the sacking of Puel is up there. Andy Price is saying Newcastle is on BT Sport. Is it? I didn't know that. I didn't know it was on BT Sport. Jake saying he might go to the FA Cup. Come on, Jake. Come down to the city on Saturday. Paula says, love JJ. Mick Henson saying, Jamie Vardy, 11-11 Premier goals in a row. Man United to beat the record is up there as a very good shout. Casey Danielle says, BT Sports doing a New Year's Day all-dayer. Interesting. Scott Simpson is agreeing about Puel being the best. You are very harsh. I think Ross Howard is supplying me with the stats tonight. Is this the managers we've had in that 10 years? Ross has put it in there in the comments. He says it's Pearson, Paulo Sousa, Sven Goran Eriksson, Nigel Pearson again, Claudio Ranieri, Craig Shakespeare, Puel, and now Brendan. That's the last 10. I'm taking Ross's word for it. Thank you for that. Andy Mellons is saying 5. And Jason Gunnett is saying Leicester's game is on BT Sport. Do you know what? I didn't know it was on BT Sport. So there you go. You can watch Leicester totally legit against Newcastle. So we want tonight. I do want to talk a bit about the West Ham game, if we may. We'll come back to what's been the most important 10 things in Leicester's last 10 years. That game against West Ham, I came on here before kick-off with that team news. I was a bit gobsmacked. Many of you were gobsmacked as well, but it turned out okay in the end. I think we made hard work of it. At half-time, we were well in it at 1-1, and I think it was a good exercise for some of the lads. Who do you think came out on top? I think James Justin was certainly up there as somebody who came out on top. I think Demarai Gray probably worked his way through that game. It was a lazy penalty, and he drifted in and out of the game. But overall, I thought Demarai Gray had a good game. I tell you who did have a good game, not only a good game, a great game, if you look at the stats, is Mark Albrighton. I had a catch-up earlier with James, who does the kit room for us, and Neil. James showed me Albrighton's stats from Saturday's game, and he had the most touches in the opposition's half out of any players, and I think it was like 90% of his passes were going forwards and met a man. So he was the most classed statistically as the most attacking player, and for me, you know, I think Mark Albrighton should be in the starting team. I still think that. I think Mark Albrighton against Newcastle has earned his place to start ahead of Harvey Barnes. Do you agree with that or not? What are your views? Are you Albrighton in? In fact, we'll do this using the emojis. If you want Mark Albrighton to start on Wednesday against Newcastle, give us a like, a thumbs up like. If you want Harvey Barnes, persevere with Harvey Barnes, seen some great stuff from him, give us a love heart emoji. So you guys do that, and let's see what comes up on the screen. You can see it, I can see it. A lot of thumbs already coming up, a lot of likes, a lot of Albrightons. If it was me, I'd put my neck on the line. I'd give Mark Albrighton the start. I would anyway. A few hearts for Harvey Barnes. Quite a few hearts for Harvey Barnes, but I would say generally we've got more likes coming out for Mark Albrighton. I would say that's about, trying to count emojis quickly off the screen, I would say that's about 65-35. I think certainly more going for, plenty more going for Mark Albrighton. I would agree with you. I think Harvey Barnes has had, I don't know what it is with Mark Albrighton. You notice every manager who comes in seems to want to bench Mark Albrighton for a period to start with. It's as if they don't think, give him time and he gets back under. He's a starter for me. He is one of the main reasons I think we won the league, and I think he's an unsung hero, Mark Albrighton. I think he should start. Mick Turvey says Justin and Mendy played well. I agree against West Ham. I agree when Mendy did, considering he's barely played all season. I think you're right, Mick. I think he did play well. Auntie Karen saying Mark Albrighton, agreeing. Hope he starts at Newcastle. I agree with you, Auntie Karen, definitely. James Moore says Pape Mende had a good game. He did. He certainly did have a good game. Dave Felstead says, will the same team that beat West Ham be the team against Wigan in the league? Well, you mean the FA Cup, obviously, Dave. But yes, I get your drift. I think after the Norwich game, after the Liverpool game, after the Man City game, I think a couple of those, maybe, and I'm putting my hat in the ring and saying I think Mark Albrighton earns a start against Newcastle. I think James Justin did everything well, but subject to, obviously, injuries and illnesses, I would expect to see Ricardo and Chilwell back. Although Fuchs didn't put much wrong against West Ham. Alison Green says she agrees with me. Scott Simpson says Leicester reserves beat West Ham. Aggie says, I was worried before the game when I heard the side, weren't we all, Aggie, but thought we fully deserved the win. Roll on, Newcastle. Excuse me having a sip. I'd like to say it was tea, but it is Christmas, so it's something slightly more beer infested. Anthony Beebe says, Albrighton was carrying the team against West Ham. I agree. Well, I wouldn't say carrying, but... he also says Wes was really trying. I thought Wes did well. I don't think playing out from the back suits Wes so much. Do you think on that? But then we didn't. It was quite nice we weren't playing out all the way from the back. I've said it before. I don't know what you guys think. I thought some manager from Europe's going to come into the Premier League in the next 12 or 18 months with this revolutionary new system which is 4-4-2, a big striker, a little striker, and let's pump the ball up fast. It'll be a revolution. And then teams will start playing 4-4-2 again. Because I do think some of this playing out from the back is a bit of a fad. And I think it's great if you are one of the top teams with the top things. And we've been doing it ever so well. But I do think there's times where we need to stop playing it. And that, to me, seems to be when we're playing one of the top sides, like Man City or Liverpool, don't play out from the back because they're pressed too high. They win the ball off you and we get in a mess. I also think it's hard to play out from the back when you play against teams like Watford and that who are just going to come to the King Power and sit back. I think sometimes go a bit 4-4-2 and play it forward a lot quicker. And I think against West Ham we were doing a bit more of that. Chris Plowright says Albrighton was brilliant. Mick Paget is going for Albrighton in. Ross Howard says push Ricardo to the right wing and just play a right back. Ricardo down, that is deadly. A lot of people have said maybe Ricardo could play more as a winger. Obviously he came here as a winger. Andy Medhurst. Andy, you trying to get me started? You trying to get me going, Andy, with that? Andy says, I still think we need another striker. I've been saying it in the pre-season. I've been saying it all through up till now, and I agree with you, Andy. I think we need another striker. Although, well played to Iheanacho, who scored again and is proving himself. Maybe he can do it. I still think Iheanacho is a bit too much like Jamie Vardy. You know I'd like a plan B striker. Don't get me started on, you know who I want. Alison Green says, Albrighton gives 110% whenever he's on the pitch. Totally does. I'm having to skip down to some of the later comments. Brett says, I think Philly's drinking a snowball. Oh, nice snowball. I watched Gavin and Stacey and Archers and Lemonade. It's not that. Yes, Scott Simpson, you're right. Of course you are. Brett and Scott, as ever, making me laugh and putting me completely off what I'm meant to be doing. James Moore saying, playing around in the box from a goal kick really winds me up. James, you're perhaps like me. We're a bit old school. We're a bit like, it's one of the first things you're taught, isn't it? Don't mess around with it there. There was a few times I saw Wes get the ball just around the area, outside the area against West Ham, and you could see it in his eyes. He's like, I don't want it. Mick Paget saying 4-4-2 all day for me. Joanne Astley saying, is it a baby sham? Make mine a baby sham. That's an old advert for some of you who might be able to remember. Get your comments in and let me know what you think. Andy, I'm not slowing my speech. I've only had half a shandy tonight, I trust me. Mark, you're all guessing what's in. Look, I'll give you the clue. Look. What do you think's in it? Nice pint. Have you got any more views on what are the top 10 moments in the last 10 years? We've got Vichai buying the club in 2010. Or we've got Jamie Vardy in 2012 buying him, the first £1 million non-league footballer. We've got 2014, I would chuck in there, the year we won the championship title. 2015, the greatest escape season. 2016, I think we won the Premier League that year, something like that happened. 2017, we got to the Champions League quarterfinals. Not been bad. 2019, we signed Brendan Rodgers. Could that be in there? Would that make your top 10? 2019 at Christmas, we are second in the Premier League and we are in the League Cup semi-final. 2020, we could qualify for the Champions League. We could get to Wembley for the first time since 2000. 20 years since we last went to Wembley for a proper match. And Scott Simpson says white lightning. I've not. Mad Dog 2020, Scott. That's what it is. Trust me. Andy Meadows is saying selling a £50 million centre half for 80 million. I think, Andy, are you not 50 million? Do you reckon? Do you think it's worth that much? I'm not sure. Joanna Astley is saying you've been trolling around on the Newcastle fan pages, and she says they're worried about Vardy. They are saying they'll be lucky to get a draw and not get hammered. Keith Goodall, we commented this on Saturday. The biggest moment, the White Sox make a reappearance. My two lads, who are, as you know, much, much younger, and they went, I like seeing Leicester playing white shorts and white socks with the blue top. That looks smart. I was like to them, I said, that's the proper colours, lads. It's just been that long since you've seen it. In my books, in my era, blue shirts, white shorts, white socks, job done. That's Leicester. That's a Leicester kit. The only thing we're missing at the moment is those stripes really need to be white, and we need a bit of a white collar. Like it smart. I'm a traditionalist, and I think that's Leicester's colours. But I absolutely agree with you, Keith. Nice to see the White Sox back. James Moore says, what an amazing decade. Who would have thought it? None of us have thought that last 10 years. It's probably been the most exciting 10 years in our club's history, hasn't it? I mean, I don't go back as far as the 60s. And the 90s were pretty darn exciting with trips to Wembley galore and the playoffs. But this last 10 years have been pretty good. Ross Howard says, we could get to Wembley 4 times in the League Cup, the EFL Trophy, FA Cup semi and final. Could be on the cards. Well, and the Community Shield. So many high times, maybe think it's the 15-16 Premier title, says David Gavin. That's got to be the highlight, hasn't it? That's got to be number one, is winning the Premier League. For me, that's if we're giving them any order, I would say as a fan, the highlight has to be winning the Premier League title. That's I would say in 10 years, that's the number one. But all those other things you've been putting in the comments, buying Vardy, the club being bought by the owners, Nigel Pearson being appointed. I'd even chuck in there Claudio Ranieri being appointed in the summer of 2015. Kasper Schmeichel being signed. I think when did he sign Kasper Schmeichel? Was he after Jamie Vardy? About 2013 or 2. In fact, I think we signed Kasper first, about 2011. Somebody will know what year we signed Kasper. If you do, put it in there. I'd say if the Thai owners, Top and Convichai, hadn't bought the club in 2010, none of it would have happened. So that was the first building block, and everything else. If Anthony Knockaert hadn't missed that penalty at Watford in the playoffs, we wouldn't have won. We wouldn't. It's all these things. I'd even go to say if Jan Kermigan hadn't missed that penalty, I'll never let that go. I'll never let that go. If Jan Kermigan hadn't missed that penalty in the playoff semi-final away at Cardiff, none of this would have happened. Craig Carver says, Sven signed Kasper. Do you know roughly what year it was? I'm not sure. Jack Marsden is saying, biggest moment sacking Claude the Fourth. Listen, you know me, I tried to back Claude well, but it's not in the top 10 things in the last 10 years. There's been many more things. The 5-3 win against Man United with Cambiasso and all that. Is that in there? Jamie Vardy getting 11 in 11. Is that in there? There's so many things we could shout out about things. I remember going to Forest away, the last game of the season in the Championship, obviously, because they're not in the Premier League for like 25 years. So we only play Forest occasionally when we go in the Championship. When we played Forest and Knockaert scored, that was Alain Le Bleu, wasn't it? That was Youngie and Alain Le Bleu. That was an amazing away day. I love that. And you know, that moment. There's moments, but then there's events as well, isn't there? Keep getting your comments in. Adam Tucker says, we don't talk about that Watford penalty. Well, if we hadn't missed that penalty, if Knockaert hadn't missed, and if Troy Deeney hadn't done that goal, none of this would have happened. Brett, I'm not reading that comment about the trip to Thailand. That Aggie says, that Monday night we won the league when Chelsea beat Spurs will live long with me. That could be up there. 9-0 against Southampton. A record Premier League win, yes. Only a few months ago. And I hadn't even put it in there. Yeah, Southampton away. Paula Garner says, 9-0 away. And it was my first away match and wasn't disappointed. They're not all that good away, Paula, but most games are good. Chapper says... Hi Chappers says, give us your worst moments of the last 10 years. Whew. Well, there's been some disappointing ones, but Chappers, that's what I say. Knockaert missing that penalty, that was awful. I felt Everybody felt sick that day, but actually, in hindsight, we wouldn't be where we were. Ross Howard says, do you remember losing 6-1 to Pompey under Paulo Sousa? Do you know what? I don't remember that. I black out all the bad games like that, Ross. Paula's saying she's going away to Villa as well. Well, let's hope. I don't care what the result is, as long as we win, Paula. So hopefully you're our lucky charm there. Brett says, come on, no negative. Let's all talk positive. I'm with you on that, Brett. There's no negatives. Let's not talk about negatives. Let's just talk about all the positive things on there. Let's finish off the last. I'm not sure what time it is because I haven't got a watch on today. Let's look forward to the Newcastle game, shall we? Obviously, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Who do you think will stay in that team? Casper, obviously, will be in it. I think, subject to Ricardo, there was talk that Ricardo had picked up an injury. So, Ricardo or James Justin, I would say, at right back. Got to be Sion-Ku and Evans. I don't think he will rest Johnny Evans. I don't think there's any need to rest Johnny Evans. And then I think, will he put Fuchs in or Chilwell? I'm slightly scratching my head there because Fuchs has only come in and played 2 or 3, 4 games this season. Never let us down, been very consistent. I'd have no problem if Christian Fuchs is at left back. I think he'll go for Ben Chilwell. Do you agree with that or not? And then I think he'll revert back to Ndidi. Back in there. Some of the questions will be, will he bring Tielemans straight back in? Will he put Maddison? I think Maddison will come back in. I think Tielemans will come back in. It's whether Dennis Pratt comes out. I think Mark Albrighton should be in there. Perez, I'm still personally not overly convinced by Perez, but he did create 2 goals on Saturday. So he had a big. Sometimes players have a big impact on the game without doing too much. Demarai Gray, again, not quite. I prefer Demarai Gray off the bench, if I'm honest. I think he offers more for that 20-25 minutes at the end. And obviously, Jamie Vardy. Will Jamie Vardy be back? Congratulations, of course, from all of us. He's had a baby girl. Will he be back or will he be given a little bit of longer time off? You don't know that. Jamie Vardy they might have said, you can have the day off and we'll put Nacho in. So, it's going to be a very, very interesting one. Joanna Astley says, keep Fuchs and Mark Albrighton in. Brett says, big fan of James Justin. I agree, Brett. I think he's done very well. Mick Paget says, get Fuchs to start. Jake Palmer says, why not Ricardo? I don't know, Jay. I'd need to check. I did hear that he was injured. He picked up a knock, but I'm not sure on that. Jack Marsden says, play Kelechi Iheanacho and Vardy up front and keep Albrighton in. Interesting one. Jake Palmer says, JJ is good enough. Adam Tucker says, Fuchs to start and also keep Hamza in. Hamza's so unlucky this season that Ndidi has been playing fantastic because Hamza Chowdhury, honestly, done nothing wrong all season. I think he's been a fantastic player. So, Mendy played ever so well, says Craig Carver. I can't see them keeping Mendy in, if I'm honest. Chris Newbury says, it's actually really, really positive knowing how much depth we have after all. Yes, I agree with you. Ross Howard saying, if Perez stays in the team, he will bag a hat-trick against his old team. I think it's always good to play a player like Perez against his old team. And Maxine Johnson goes on to say, Perez works well with Demarai Gray. Tony Fish says, Vardy will be glad to get out the house. Like, yeah, we've all had new babies. We all know what it's like. It's just like, most of it's just like I'm popping down the pub, love, or something. Jamie Vardy's like, I'm just popping up Newcastle, going to score a couple of goals. Perez doesn't get enough credit, says Paula Garner. I think you might be right, Paula. There's times I find Perez a bit of a frustrating player to watch, if I'm honest. It's a bit lightweight at times, and just I see flashes of good stuff, and I see some stuff where you go, oh, come on, Perez, get a little bit more stuck in. But did have a big impact on Saturday. Craig Carver is backing me up on the Ricardo issue, saying he did have a tight hamstring. I thought I'd heard that, to be fair, something along those lines, Craig, which is why part of the reason he wasn't there. Brett, goodbye. Brett's got to shoot. Let us know. Happy New Year to you all as well. And David Gavin saying Mendy would fit in well with Ndidi beside him. He played very well against West Ham. I just think Ndidi and Mendy a bit too defensive, although we had Hamza and Mendy against Newcastle. Listen, before we go, can you put in your comments, let me know your first goal scorer and your correct final score. If you could do that, I'll read the last few out while we finish off. Vardy may or may not play, we'll see. But put in your first goal scorer and your correct final score. As ever, we give away pizzas. So if you can do that. Mick Henson saying play 4-3-3 like that red team. Jack Marsden is saying 5-0 again, Phil. Who, Jack, though, would score the first goal? Mick Paget's come in with a Vardy and 3-1. Thank you, Mick, for that score prediction. Ian Wright saying whoever plays fine but not please Chilwell or Barnes. Paul Agana says Perez and 3-1. Craig Carver says Perez and 2-1. I think Perez will be a favourite playing against his old team to score some goals. Scott Simpson saying 2-1 to Leicester with Vardy and Perez to score. Andy Medhurst is saying 2-0 with all Brighton to score first if he plays. Simon Heighton, thanks Simon for your comment, says I think we'll finish second. And Gorilla, do you mean Guardiola will get the sack and they'll come for Rodgers, Man City? I'm not sure about that. Jack Marsden saying that 5-0. Oh, he was jokes. It's 2-0. You've still not put in there, Jack, who's going to score the first goal. Mia, how are you? Mia Crouch saying 2-1 with Vardy to score first. And Mick Henson says Vardy to score first 4-2. David Gavin says it has to be Jamie Vardy to open the scoring. And it's going to be 1-3 to us. Good evening to Chris Forian from Leicester Till I Die. Don't forget, go and follow Chris and all the stuff over there. Very, very good stuff. And what do you think, Chris? Comments in, please. Any news, any views? We haven't even gone to transfers today. We're too busy thinking about the top 10 things in the last 10 years of Leicester City's history that have had the biggest impact. We've had some great suggestions. It's going to be a tough one. And Lee Chapman is going to pull all those comments together and make you a video of the last decade, which should be some exciting stuff. Last couple of comments before I go and leave you to get back on with your Christmas. Ross Howard says 5-0 again with Perez getting 3. Chris Forian says 5-0 reduced to 1-0 after VAR. Luckily, Chris, we haven't talked too much about VAR. We could talk about it for Liverpool. We could talk about that handball by Van Dijk and why that was not reviewed, and yet Soyuncu's was and no one was in the penalty. Let's not be sour. Baz Short says Madders to score first, 1-0 to the Foxes. Tony Fish says 2-1 to Leicester. Jamie Vardy to score first. I like the sounds of that. Mick Henson, good evening. Goodbye to you. Chris Forian is saying the return of Big Nige, one of the top 10 things. I agree, Chris. It's in there. Top 10 things. Nigel Pearson. I would say the appointing of Claudio Ranieri, buying the club. We've had loads of them. Thanks for all your views and all your comments. Now, later this week, what have we got on? We've got Simon Mack has written us another fantastic fans report from the West Ham game, a review of the Newcastle game. They're all on LeicesterFanTV.com. We've got some new competitions starting for the new year. We have got some tickets for the Cup semi-final to give away, so stay tuned and keep your eyes on the posts that will be coming out over the next few days. And we've got another pink shirt to give away. Got to set all these competitions. I need to get back to work and get putting some of these posts up. Happy New Year, Andy Medhurst. Thank you for watching. Thanks to all the sponsors, all the people who help us, the guys at Emergency Glazing Services, ADT Taxes, Everard's, Peter's Pizzas, Hologram. Don't forget the Fox's Arms, the best bar in Alcudia, if not Spain, if not Europe. Totally there. And Bodie Hodges is the charity that we like to support. So, from me, Bill, Leicester Fan TV, as we are now known. Jack Marsden, have a great new year. And you, Mia, and Dale, and Colt, and Ross. Chris Forian, Mick Henson, Tony Fish, Baz Short, Jack Marsden, Chris Ward, Dave Felstead, Jake Palmer, Scott Simpson, Maxine Johnson, Craig Bennett, Dave Gavin, Mick Henson, Colin Johansson, Mia Crouch, Brett Coombs, all old Tommy Old Cobbler and all. Thank you very much. What a great 10 years it has been for Leicester City. It's been absolutely fantastic. If you can like and share this video, I would appreciate that. Don't forget, go to the website for all the information. Stay tuned for all the other content that we'll be putting out this week over the match time. And let's hope it's 3 more points for Leicester City at Newcastle United. From me, Phil, Leicester Fan TV. I'll see you all before the match on Wednesday, where we'll be doing more lives around that game. Goodbye. Back to my cup of tea.